Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are here in Arkansas and we're about to go to an exceptionally fun, amazing state park. So let's get our mask on and go inside. Remember, safety first. Sometimes when you see a sign, just put on the mask. Now, Hobbs is one of those parks that once you stop in, you have to come to the visitor center. The visitor center here is amazing, and there's so many cool things. There's also a lot of other activities that you can do while at Hobbs, including hiking, biking, camping, and the list goes on and on. But today, I'm going to show you why the visitor center is where it's at. Now this shows a few of the amazing places that you can go while here in Arkansas. Now here we can learn a little bit more about the overall history of the area, including this, the Peter Van Winkle Sawmill. Now there is a small hiking area that has an interpretive trail that we might go on after we leave here to find out a little bit more about why this family made such a difference in this area. Now right here in this corner you will find a scavenger hunt, and these are pretty cool because you can actually go through and find all of the critters on this box, and then whenever you come back to the visitor center you can talk to a ranger or use these touch screens to find out a little bit more. Now typically whenever you're here you can go through and touch all of the cool things in this area. However, right now because of the masks and the COVID, we want to make sure that we're not doing that because it's off limits. So no. In this section you can find out about all of the different plants that might exist in the different regions, and there are dots to show on each one of these maps as to where you might find this particular grouping. Wow, this guy right here is huge, really huge, as comparison to this little tiny guy right here, the spring peeper. Now when I hear spring peeper, I think it probably makes a tiny little kind of noise. It may not, but that's kind of what I think. And this is one of my favorite things about this state park. This is a ginormous bat head that talks a little bit more about how bats use their super crazy sonar to be able to do things. Like this guy, this is the gray bat, and this is a bat that's dependent on local caves for hibernation, but it's also one of the more endangered bats. Or this guy, which is a common cave bat. This one is mostly solitary, super small, and very similar to those that they had at Longhorn Cavern in Texas that they called the chicken nugget bat. Now, of course, this one is much larger than average, but this is the more common brown bat, and it is a large bat. However, it's not this big. You come inside and it tells you about cave formations, and there are several different push buttons that as you push it will illuminate different pieces, including a few bats, a few salamanders, some different cave crickets, things like that. This is one of my favorite things about Hobbs right here. And within this section it talks about the food chain within a cave. And this is something that you don't often get to see, even whenever you visit a cave. They don't often talk about that. I absolutely love the attention to detail that has been placed into this state park. And I think that this is a wonderful learning experience for the young and old alike. And it's wonderful to know that this is a resource that is right here in Arkansas for us all. You can even find out a little bit more about fossils of Arkansas, because there are a lot of them here. Now, something that has always drawn me in about Arkansas State Park specifically is that they put a lot of work into centers like this, and that each state park has its own dedicated vision to conveying the message and the stories of the location itself. Other states do a good job, don't get me wrong, but when you come to Arkansas, it's next level. Everything in Arkansas, when it comes to their state parks, truly echoes that natural state vibe, and it's wonderful. And as you visit during different seasons, this rotates. You'll be able to see the different animals you would find here throughout the year, through the viewing window or on the property. Now, as you can see, all of this green area is all of the state park, which is absolutely massive. But there's a few points of interest that I'm exceptionally excited about. We're starting off here at the Visitor Center, and we're going to be going to the Winkle Trail and Historic Site. And something absolutely amazing about coming to one of the state parks is they have all of these resources so that you can find other amazing places. I think we'll get one of these so that we can have the map of the hiking trail that we're about to go on. And then let's head back to the car, down the road, and off we go. We are now arriving at the historic Winkle Trail on the Little Clifty Creek. Now, along this stretch of road, you'll find numerous hiking trails and numerous biking areas, numerous camping areas. But this one is the one that has the most historic value to the Hobbs State Park specifically. This is the site of the original Van Winkle Mill. Now, the Van Winkle's Mill was something that actually did a lot of stuff for this community. Timber was harvested straight out of the forest right here in this area and went on to be milled and sent off to help build communities such as Rogers, Eureka Springs, and many more in the Arkansas area. This trail is going to take us through a historic past of the Van Winkles and how exactly that they were a part of the Arkansas landscape. Now, just up this staircase right here is the parking lot that goes directly beside the highway. We are about to go under the highway. Now, overhead I can hear the traffic passing, and it's kind of interesting to know that we're traveling right below all of those cars. But alas, we have made it to the end. And we have now made it to Winkle Hollow. Here we have a map and a brief history about the Van Winkle Mill community. Now, something that does need to be noted, the Van Winkle Mill was actually here during the time of the Civil War. And so some of the facts of the Civil War we all know are not pleasant. However, this is a bright dot in the midst of all of that horrible stuff that was going on. Mr. Van Winkle actually had a lot of respect from both the black and white communities of the area and provided a lot of services and jobs for everyone. So without further ado, let's move down the trail. Now, this right here is pretty common at historic sites. This is something that is protected by the Antiquities Act, which is why you cannot hunt or remove artifacts. It is prohibited. So if you find something, you do need to report it to the rangers at the ranger station or at the visitor center. As we move from the paved trail, we come to this, which is gravel. And it leads us to our next sign. It says here, these quarters are not mentioned as historical documents, but were discovered during an archaeological exploration. And over here, where we see this large pile of stone, that's where that might have been found. They also found some other items, including toys, guns, fragments of alphabet plates, marbles, rings, and pottery in this area. Now, upon closer evaluation, there is a area here that is kind of stoned off, like it could have been a foundation, so this could have been a portion of it as well. I'm not sure. Now, one of the things I really like about coming out to sites like this is it makes you use your imagination a little bit. Sometimes the sites aren't fully preserved where you can just walk into a building and say, hey, I'm in a building. Sometimes you have to use that mind's eye and think about what the description is telling you and what life would have been like at that time. So I kind of like to come to places like this because it encourages me to try my hand at imagining a life long before me by people that I never will meet. Now, as you can see here, the Van Winkle Mill site is placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And this location right here is where the home would have originally been built in the 1800s. Now, the original home was built in the 1850s, but was destroyed in the Civil War. They rebuilt on the same location, and the stone wall that we're seeing right now would have been the fence area, which would have been built up to kind of protect the yard from whatever that they protected the yard from. And later on, much later on, the home that sat here, that was the second iteration, was taken apart piece by piece. And pieces of that were later reused in another area to create other things. So imagine this piece of land. What kind of home do you think was here? How big was it? What kind of doors did it use? The shutters, things like that. This is what the home actually looked like. Here's a couple of different photos. There we go. Between these two walls is a spring, and this is where the family would have had their spring house. Now, for us who are living in the modern age, we don't know too much about spring houses, but basically this is how they would keep things cool, and also where they would harvest their water. See, now we just go to the refrigerator and pull whatever we want out, or take our cup to the sink and put it right on in, and that's all we have to do. But way back then it was a lot more work just to have those simple things like cold food and water. And again, this is what that might have looked like in 1965 before it was destroyed. Continuing down the path, you'll notice that there's lots of benches that you can stop and sit. You can hear the birds out here. It's absolutely beautiful, well shaded, a great place to just come out and enjoy a day in Arkansas. Now, here we learn a little bit more about the archaeology that played a huge part in discovering more of the Van Winkle Hollow area and some of the things that they might have found whenever they were digging around out here. Now, this is what they think that the blueprint would have looked like based on records. And this is what exists today for us to see. So, in your mind, what kind of structure stood here? Was it tall? Was it short? What purpose did it serve? Here we can see what that building might have looked like. Right here, the Van Winkle Mill. And then also what it might have looked like on the inside. Now, something else that made the Van Winkle Mill pretty exceptional was the fact that they used steam power. This steam power was used in order to drive a belt. And this belt would help make the production way faster than some of the older models. Now, of course, in order to have a mill, you have to have some kind of water. So the mill itself was positioned on this water line right over here so that they could have that to continuously power things along. And although the water doesn't look like it's like super fast moving right now, as there hasn't been any rain in quite some time, this is still a pretty large source right here. So this is probably why they selected this particular area, because of that water. This talks a bit more about the Vernon West Mill. And this one is a gasoline powered sawmill, which came along a little bit after the Van Winkles. So here it shows that this could actually be used in a little bit different way than the traditional old mill. You didn't need quite as big of a situation just to make it work. Now, right here, again, we're looking right there at that water though. Now this area we're walking on right now is a huge loop, but still very manageable. You could easily come down here and spend 20 minutes to an hour learning a little bit more and get vast knowledge about the Van Winkles and also about Hobbs State Park. Between 1858 and 1890, the Van Winkle Mill was the hub of commerce between northwest Arkansas, and it generated traffic from all directions. Benton County Court designated this as the Van Winkle Mill Road on September 17th, 1859. I was looking at this map right here, and this is actually kind of interesting. So I've been to a place called Pea Ridge. Pea Ridge is where a major battle was fought in the Civil War in Arkansas. The Elkhorn Tavern was a portion of that, and we aren't that far away from the Elkhorn Tavern right here at the Van Winkle Mill. So this leads me to believe that the Van Winkle Mill probably provided some of the wood that was used at the Pea Ridge area. It's kind of amazing how when you start going to different sites, the value that they add to putting the pieces together. It's really cool to see the history as it links to one site and then another site and then another site. And by the time that you've visited all of these locations, you have a more complete image in your mind as to how the day-to-day life might have been in that area at that time. Here we find the blacksmith shop, and we can actually walk across this bridge and into the footprint of what would have been the blacksmith area right here. And of course we know not only within farm communities, within any communities at that time, the blacksmith was one of the most important people because they were able to create everything from simple tools to horseshoes to weapons. A little bit of everything came out of the blacksmith shop. So seeing the footprint of this smaller place is kind of surprising considering so many things actually came from that one place. Up these stairs once stood Peter Van Winkle's elevated flower garden. The stairs to the garden aligned with the brick walkway of the Winkle home and created the ideal view from the second floor porch. Thanks for checking out Arkansas with me today and coming out to this wonderful, amazing state park. I hope that you are encouraged to get out and find state parks in your area and explore a little bit. The history here is amazing, and there are so many places that you can get out and do numerous activities such as hiking, biking, camping, fishing, and so much more here in the natural state. Until next time, guys, bye!